Hey everyone, welcome to Surf Soon, a numerically rated surfcraft review series. If you dig this episode, please hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. Now let's get to the show. In this episode, I'll be reviewing a 9.0 Mango Jam by Kai Sallas in Thunderbolt Silver technology. The Mango Jam is Kai Sallas' answer to a low-volume log that caters to a more high-performance approach to logging. Although it's still a single fin, the rails, tucked edge, and lower volume outline keep it lively under the feet. The wide point is pushed below center, and instead of nose concave, a slight V is prominent tip to tail. Is this the ideal 2+1 alternative? Well, let's get a closer look. The rocker is pretty continuous throughout and flips at the nose and tail. The rails from nose to tail are full, but the width of the board is low, very similar to a shortboard rail, and a tucked edge is starting 2 feet up from the tail. The bottom is actually very different from what I've seen. It just has a continuous slight V from tip to tail.
All right, so first impressions on the Mango Jam. Honestly, I was really surprised at, I'd never seen one in person. This was ordered and didn't really have any information on it except for dimensions and just what I could see of an outline. But the rails itself, I mean, this thing screams shortboard rails. In general, this board has so many characteristics that tend to kind of go on the high pro style of surfing, and it was very different for me. But let's get to categories and kind of figure this one out, all right? So noseride, and a lot of people have been asking about this particular category. I gave it a 6.5, and the reason why is it's such a small package in such a long length, and to call this a nose rider, I just don't see it. A few things that I did find: it does have the tail rocker and nose rocker that I would like in a nose rider, but the V that's running tip to tail, there were a few times where when I sped up and I got to around here, it just outraced the wave itself. And also, when the V is like this, from what I have found, it kind of almost lets the board, when you get up here, almost like slip down the wave. And I didn't know if it was because of the fin catching, but I couldn't really get it to nose ride. And I think it's a me issue as well, and I think it's the waves that I was trying to surf. But yeah, the next couple categories, you understand why this board is a good board though. So maneuver, 9.5, and this is really where this board shines. We got this hard edge that's starting right around here, so far before where the fin box is. It's a small package. The wide point is 1 inch off of the center. So there's a lot of curve in this board, and the curve really helps with maneuvering. I find myself able to maneuver it more from the middle for a little heel toe, but also what I really dug about it is the kind of the way that it turns. You can really put all of your energy into it and not worry about it sliding out. And when I say sliding out, I don't mean the fin sliding out. I mean that rolly pivot turn. This thing wants to carve, and you can see it when Kai Sallas does his turns. He turns this like as if it was a 2+1. And that's really where this board shines. And next category, you'll see where it shines too. So trim, I gave it a 9, but I also want to add a word into this category as well, and that's drive. And that's what this board really brings to the table. Trim, yes, absolutely. The bottom really helps with that, and the amount of rocker that is in the nose end in the tail, but also the flatness in the middle really helps it trim. But the drive that you're getting off of your bottom turns on this board makes this board feel so much smaller. And I know that this category is not drive, but I think it's something that has to get brought up. Because drive helps with trim, because you have to go into anything with speed in order to trim in any sort of surfboard or wave. So this really kind of gives that kind of speed out of your bottom turn, even out of your top turn, where you can feel it just go down and then come right back up. That's where this thing excels. All right, volume distribution, I gave it an 8, and the shortboarder in me that doesn't really exist in present life, but was a big part of me, really liked this board. You could pump this thing, and I've never pumped a longboard. I've never ridden a 2+1 either, so maybe that's something that I should explore a little bit. But you can really pump this thing and get it to get speed, and I think that has a lot to do with the bottom, but I also think that has to do with the outline and just the amount of foam that they're bringing to the rail, but how there's like not a lot to it. It takes away from the stability on the nose, but it does bring a absolute new feel and slightly refreshing feel to this board. And that's just because of the lack of foam in it itself. Paddling, 8.5. You know, the footage doesn't really show, and I'm not saying it was a big day that the footage kind of details with, but I felt very comfortable paddling this board out there. It paddles extremely fast, and it's one of those boards where you don't have to kind of get it up to speed to go. It just kind of takes off on its own. Paddling into waves, you can paddle super early, even in this small. I know you guys don't possibly love the word volume or liters, but that's exactly what this thing is. It's a low volume longboard, and it paddles a lot longer than you would think it would. The nice thing too is I was able to kind of get the nose, I wouldn't say down, but just paddling through wave after wave, it kind of did its thing, and it makes it more of a longboard that's maybe more comfortable in those sessions where it's a little too big for a longboard and just getting a little annoying to paddle a log. Special moments, I gave it an 8.5, and you know, I didn't get a lot of tip time, but it was really fun to surf a board off the tail a little bit more, have that smaller outline in general. Listen, I kind of see why this board is a go-to board for some of the guys on the WSL. Kai Sallas obviously loves this board, but you can see him using it as the best of both worlds. And again, I didn't have the best time getting up to the nose, but I could also see it working in a good point break and maybe not a quick beach break. So as far as fins, I ran two different fins. I ran this is the Waxhead FCS 2. It is 10 inches. And I also ran this Connie Stewart Flying Diamonds. This is just the Connie 10.5. So I ran this in smaller waves and really liked it because it was a little stiffer. It was kind of able to make quicker turns, I believe. But when I surfed that bigger day, I ran this fin, and I just felt that it kind of needed it. It does have a good amount of nose rocker. It doesn't have a ton of tail rocker, but it has enough to the point of where if you're trimming in the middle and you're on a bigger wave, I could see the tail kind of giving out every once in a while, but this really kept it focused. As far as my noseride attempts, I felt that it was more achievable with this. I don't know if it's the 1/2 inch that this has, but it just, for some odd reason, kind of worked a little better for me. So final thoughts. You know, as a day-to-day log, for me personally, in the experience that I'm having with longboarding currently, I don't know if it's necessary, but if you have a good punchy point break and you just want to rip and you kind of want to just run circles, this is a great board. Listen, I got the 9-footer because I kind of really wanted to rip this thing and see what it did, and that's exactly what it did. It turned great. I think the 9.4 maybe would have been a little bit of a better board for me if I wanted to work more on the nose, but I keep on seeing these rumors about a 9.9, and in this outline, and if they're spreading out the volume the way they are from the 9.0 to the 9.4, the 9.9 might be insane. So I'm gonna kind of keep my eyes peeled on that one. But in the meantime, this was a great board. I think it's not for everybody, but I think it's also maybe something that's really beginner user friendly, or beginner kind of getting into the whole longboard scene without riding one of those big clunky logs. So yeah, that's my final thoughts on this bad boy.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. If you liked this episode, please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Feel free to share, comment, and all that good stuff. Until next time, there are always waves on the way, so hang tight, surf soon.